So, I got laid off.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
In an unexpected turn of events, I was laid off from my big law job, and now I've technically been without a job since the Friday of 2 weeks ago. Now, while that was unexpected, it doesn't mean I wasn't prepared. Now, thankfully, I already had a bunch of things I could immediately start working on that I really already was working on. I can now just pour more hours into them. Namely, the carpet and steam cleaning business. There's plenty to work on there, and now I can devote a lot more hours to it. And I'm working on a pretty exciting development when it comes to my legal career, and I'll get back to that by the end of this video, but it's definitely been a pretty interesting last month since there's been a lot of stuff that I'm trying to sort of rebalance, reallocating my time towards things because that time otherwise would have been locked up in the big law realm. So it's both liberating and nerve-wracking at the same time in that it's nice to have all this time back, but you have to find a place for that time. So it's both a blessing and a curse, if you want to call it that. But for now, let's go ahead and get into the numbers and we can talk more about this on the other side of that. As a reminder, last month our net worth was just around $125,500. As always, let's start with the good stuff, the assets. Tax day was last month, so one of the biggest changes on the asset side of things actually is in my HSA, and that I maxed it out for this year. Try and earn an extra deduction and whittle down the tax bill a bit right before the deadline. That's now up to almost $17,000, and I really see this as a true emergency fund in that if we have a major healthcare expense, we can pull from this. But in the meantime, we're getting a nice tax deduction, and there are some other tax advantages to HSAs over the long term. If you don't actually end up using it for healthcare, by a certain age, you potentially can just take it as sort of a normal retirement distribution. But in any event, we maxed it out again this year. Speaking of taxes, I'm due a refund from the great state of Illinois of $670. And thanks to my rental property, the state of Indiana owes me $2.
$2. Cash.
And speaking of Indiana, my Indianapolis rental property is just about ready to sell. We're looking to get it listed sometime in the next week or two. And we had some stuff linger for getting the unit completely ready to go. Some things here and there that needed to be repaired, some things that were kind of forgotten. So trying to do a remote sort of unit turn is a little bit annoying in that sense when you're trying to go really fast, but oh well, it's a few weeks off the market. But I've been increasing the paper value of the property here on the balance sheet. It's probably worth a lot closer to 160 to 170 grand, but I'm being a little conservative here, partly because there is a $10,000 balance to be paid towards the rehab, which I'm not including elsewhere on the balance sheet. And also I'm anticipating things like capital gains, the closing costs that we might have to pay, and paying my realtor fees as well for getting the thing listed and sold. And there's always a chance it sells for less than I think I'll get today. But either way, once that's sold, it'll get converted into cash and it'll be ready to go for a future deal, likely on the business side of things, or a very large part of it might be used simply to pay down debt. And in the meantime, we're still sitting on around $100,000 in cash. In total, that leaves us with just below $1.3 million in assets. And now onto liabilities. There's not a whole lot to note here other than my federal tax payment, which has been submitted, and that's for just under $1,500. It would have been quite a bit higher had I not done all of the HSA contributions that I mentioned on the asset side, but that's our current federal tax bill. That should be getting paid any moment now. We are nearing the time where we technically would have to start paying our student loans again. However, we'll see what the government actually does if it once again kicks the can down the road, which I would certainly not be surprised if they do that. But we'll be ready to start making payments if and when we have to. Now, if we look at my debt pay down for April, you'll note that it came in at just over $4,000. A lot of this was simply the minimum payments being made on these loans and whatever principal balance associated with those payments getting paid down. I did mention last month that I was going to be making a bunch of extra payments most likely. However, I wasn't anticipating being laid off, so just to kind of be conservative, sort of tighten things, I decided to just hold on to the cash. And I wanted to get a better feel for what's going to be happening in the short to medium term before we started whittling down the cash to fund towards debt. That said, I did make an extra payment of $1,000 or so for one of my personal loans. I was going to plan on doing more later in the month, but then again, I didn't think I was going to be getting laid off, so I put a pause to that. But in total, that means I'm up to $41,000 in debt paydown for 2023. And in total, that leaves us with $1.15 million million in liabilities, which means our net worth has grown to just shy of $142,000, which is an increase of over $16,000 from last month. Our debt ratio has finally fallen back below 90%, down to 89.07%, and our passive income remains at $600 per month. And when it came to my net worth, it was a very positive month, but we'll see how positive it is for my career. Speaking of my career, I did allude to a significant development on the career side of things, and I'm actually in the middle of starting my own law firm. It's really a solo practice, but it sounds cooler if you say law firm, and I am anticipating having a partner join me in the coming months, but for now I'll be going solo. Now that said, law is probably going to take a back seat to my business portfolio, at least for the foreseeable future, because I have a lot I can work on there that I know I can work on, whereas the law firm is just kind of getting ramped up, and there are some significant opportunities with that, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people, including a few who would like to work with me right away, so that's really great to see and really great to hear, so it's very encouraging. So while that's kind of ramping up, I'll spend most of my energy towards getting the business in a better spot than it's currently in now. I'm trying to build out the team, get it to the next level, bringing on salespeople, bringing on new technicians, and simply growing the business to new heights. But in the future, I expect to have some sort of balance going between running my own practice and then also running the business portfolio, with things shifting as time goes along and as new opportunities arise. And I'll have a lot more info about my law practice. I can be a little bit more candid now that I won't be working for someone else, so that's pretty refreshing, and that's pretty refreshing in general in that I'm not actually answering to anyone else but myself. But in the long run, I actually think getting laid off is going to be a very positive development, in that I was already thinking potentially about what my life would look like without having big law in it, and I had plenty of thoughts about what would happen if I did get laid off. What would I do? Would this be a really nice and liberating thing? Would it actually be that bad of a thing? So I was definitely thinking about that quite a bit before this all happened. It just coincidentally happened around that same time, I guess. And it definitely pulled some decisions up quite a few months, so I'm making those choices now. But overall, I think it's been a pretty positive process in reallocating my schedule and figuring out where I should really prioritize my time, because I think that's really what's going to serve me best in the long run. It's having freedom to put my time towards what I think are actually the biggest, greatest opportunities for me in the long run, even if that means the short term is going to be a little bit more uncomfortable. But we're very far from being in a bad position. We have a nice cash runway. My wife still has her job, so we can certainly pay for all of our expenses just through that. We don't want to do that forever or have to do that forever, so we're trying to find ways to make more money. I have this business I can focus on and try and grow that. I can still run my own law firm and build a practice there and make money there. There are lots of different ways to make money. And right now I'm just in the process of figuring out which ways are going to be the most lucrative for the long run, without getting too risky, of course. Now I'll have a more detailed video talking about the layoff and the aftermath of that and the adjustments that I'm making and will continue to be making. So definitely stay tuned for that if you're at all interested. But I just want to thank everyone for your support in the process. I've gotten a lot of nice messages and nice wishes from everyone after all this happened. So it's really nice to be in a supportive community, and I appreciate all of you for that. And I very much appreciate all of you who've subscribed. And as always, thanks for watching.